Hopefully other people will join us as we go along. So welcome everyone to the first session in the GCAS Professional Development Writing Group Learning Community. In particular, we are all here as part of the process of learning how to do grants. Hopefully all of you are going to be submitting a GCAS GSSCE grant, a Graduate Student Scholarship and Creative Endeavors grant. My name is Ray Garner, and along with Cameron Griffith, we are your co-presidents for the Graduate Council of Arts and Sciences, representing all graduate students in the College of Arts and Sciences. Before I talk about today's session and our speakers, I will briefly just put in the chat a campus group join link. So for all the students, make sure you're part of GCAS on campus groups. You'll get access to all of our newsletters and events. We do not only professional development events like this, but also social events, and we represent your troubles and your grievances to the college administrations to help get those fixed. So we are here today for the session titled How to Find Financial Support to Fund Your Good Ideas. So today we will hear from three panelists about both internal and external funding sources for any of the subject areas, whether you're a scientist or in the humanities or the arts. You'll hear about it all, including a little bit more about the GSSCE grant and what that entails. Let me just briefly say who our speakers are in no particular order. We have Dr. Lydia Kisley, who is an assistant professor in the physics department. We have Dr. Calandruccio, who is a professor in the psychological sciences department, as well as the associate dean for academic affairs. And we have Miss Amy Trostle, the manager of research and grant development here in the College of Arts and Sciences. So each of our speakers will get about 15 minutes to talk about one particular aspect of funding, and then we will have time for questions at the end. So please do hold all your questions till the end. With that, I believe Ms. Trostle is going to get us started.
Hi, thank you so much, Ray. Yeah, like Ray said, I am the manager of research administration and grant development for the College of Arts and Sciences here. And today I'm going to start you off with how to find external funding and using a tool that we offer through the College of Arts and Sciences on how to find these specific funding. So I'm going to share my screen here. Can everybody see this? Okay, good. All right, and so I'm going to introduce you to what's called Pivot, and it is a database system that CASE subscribes to. And you can actually find it very easily just through our college website, but you can find it here just by searching in the search engine. So right here, to take you to our office website, and move this over here. And I recommend also just taking a look at this page, as it gives you some little bits of information about Pivot even before getting started. But here, if you just go to log into Pivot, it will take you directly to it. And here, I know I'm already logged in, but I'm going to sign out. So it's actually very simple to create an account in Pivot. You have the choice of either creating your own password through a different email account, or you can do it through CASE's credentials. So I will go ahead and just do it through so you can see. So just going to CASE, and then it will automatically take you. You should get your sign-in information to log you in officially. But then, so this is the main page of Pivot. And I recommend, once you've created an account, to build your profile, and that is, you'll see your name up at the top right hand corner, and you'll go, I'll first take you to my profile. And since I'm a staff member, I don't have a huge profile for funding because I don't need it, but I included just a little bit of keywords from my own graduate thesis from William & Mary, but I will show you some faculty profiles to give you a bigger picture. And it is through your profile that triggers these funding opportunities. And so let me take you to some examples. So we're going to start with Lee Hoffer, who is a faculty member in anthropology. And so here he has a very nice, well-developed profile. And this is where I recommend you adding, there's a place to put your expertise or your research areas. You can write as much as you want in there, and this information is used for Pivot to trigger opportunities, as well as the keywords down here. And so I recommend adding as many keywords as you see fit, because the more expansive your number of keywords you use, the more opportunities that will pop up in searches. So for in the case of Dr. Hoffer, his grants, and he is a bit of an example of humanities and social sciences, a bit mixed, as anthropology and history and a few other departments do. But as you can see, his grants are nice and updated here, but he focuses a lot on social sciences mixed with humanities. And so he has funding through the National Science Foundation, which they do have, well, they're more well known for their physical sciences, as Dr. Kisley will tell you about later. But they do also have programs for social sciences and behavioral sciences. So any of you who focus in those areas, I recommend giving some consideration to the National Science Foundation, as they do have opportunities for you as well. And they are probably the largest of the federal funders to consider. Otherwise, a lot of arts, humanities, and social sciences look at foundations and societies and other smaller sponsors. But it's always a good idea to look at all the opportunities available to you. So let's look at someone else. We're going to look at in arts. So Elizabeth Bowman, I'm taking you to art history. Here she is. And so she, like Dr. Hoffer, has a nice amount of information in her profile, like I said, which I recommend that you do. And that helps trigger information for funding opportunities. And she has, hers unfortunately is not updated, which you can do. And it's important to keep that updated as you continue, as your research builds and you engage in more opportunities for research development, just to keep that updated so that Pivot can use that information. And so for the arts and humanities, they also use National Endowment for the Humanities. So another, like the NSF, a popular federal funder, which offers a lot of opportunities for different fields within the arts and humanities. And now that I've shown you a couple of people, I want to show you how to actually just conduct a funding search. So, and you can search, if you go to funding here, you can start broadly, like with a topic. So say history of science. It's a very broad topic. Pivot will pull up opportunities that fit within this keyword, this broad keyword. And so as you can see, 190 results will pop up. Now, it may be that some of these results do not fit perfectly for what you're wanting to do under that umbrella term. And so it will be important for you to go into each of these opportunities and make sure that they fit, whether you as the applicant are eligible or your projects that you want to create and seek funding for is eligible for or that the sponsor will pay for it. So let's say for here, the Science History Institute is a very popular one. We'll go to the long-term fellowships. It pops up here. There we go. And so if you go into one of these opportunities, it will break down information about the sponsor and the program that is providing this funding. It will initially give you the website to where you would go to actually apply for the program. If you decide that you are eligible and it fits your project, you would go through this website to get more information and to then apply. But then it will break down how much money it offers, the applicant type. So if you see here, the individuals allowed to apply are a graduate student and pre-doc. So this would be enough. You would be eligible for this one. And then it will have some information about the institution, your citizenship status, where you are located, or where your research can be conducted. And then it will have some information about the program and also some additional eligibility information about what kind of projects they will fund. And then we'll do another search here, and then I'll show you some of the information that's on the left-hand side. So if you wanted to do something a little more specific, so this is a very particular social science program through the National Science Foundation. If you go here, you can go in and, like I said, look at what information is available about this program and how to access it. And then if you want to track this particular opportunity, you can click on this box here and then click track, and it will send you an email once it's updated or when it renews for the next opportunity for submission. And then you can just add tracked, and then you can go to the home page here, and you'll see when you're logged in, it will list my funding opportunities, and you can go to tracked ops, and then it will be right there. Another thing that you can do is, we'll look at another. So let's see, French language. If you look for funding that's for fellowships or any kind of funding opportunities related to French language or French studies, and you have 17 results and you would like to save this search, you don't have time at the moment to go through each one, you can then save your search here, and then you can title it French language. And then you can check this box if you would like emails sent to you on a weekly basis about funding opportunities that are related to this particular searched word. And at any point you want to edit or remove these saved searches, you can go back to the main page here and go to saved searches, and it will list all the ones that you've saved. And you have the option of editing them, renaming them, adding tags. You can also, if you have the email alert checked, you can turn it off. And then if you're not needing the search anymore, you can always delete it. And then finally, I wanted to also just give you some examples of funding programs that are very popular for the arts and humanities and social sciences. I know for social sciences, I've already mentioned about NSF and some others, but some of those more smaller programs are like the Guggenheim. This is a very popular one, and this one funds across both the humanities and the social sciences. So like for this one, And you can also see here on the left-hand side, if you're looking for like under a specific funding program, if multiple ones show up and you want to make sure that you are eligible as a graduate student, you can go to the applicant types and click on this, and it will just narrow it down for which ones you are eligible for. So it's like for this one. And it will list that also on the information on the particular program. So let's go. Another one that is very popular. I apologize, my internet is a little slow. Is the Henry Luce Foundation. This one funds a lot in social sciences, but also some humanities, depending on your type of research. So like this one I have actually saved, or tracked, I should say. And so like the public policy, if you're in with political science, or even history, this one is an excellent program to consider. And then finally, another one that is quite popular is the Ford Foundation. And this one in particular is very popular amongst for graduate students. So like for here right now, there's 4 available for graduate students. And sometimes certain programs have eligibility requirements about memberships that you are engaged in, or if it has a diversity focus, wanting more information about you as an applicant. And so all that information will be listed on the program page here, just by clicking in here. So, and I believe that those are the main sort of tips I wanted to give you about Pivot. And this is a really, really good tool to use. And like I said, it's free and available through the college. And there's all kinds of tutorials, both on this page and the Office of Research page on how to use it. But otherwise, it's a very easy and navigatable system. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Trostle. We'll now hand it over to Dr. Kisley to talk more about the sciences.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I guess some of the stuff that I'm going to share is maybe not specific for the sciences, but specific for, applicable to like all fields as well. Because if the theme of today is how to find funding, I guess my biggest point would be to always be looking for funding as well. And there's a couple ways to do that. So Amy just shared how CASE has Pivot as a resource where you could search around. But I want to point out a couple of other ways to do this. One is realize that CASE has that resource. Other universities have resources. There's resources online. There's social media. So when you see an opportunity, always don't think you have to limit yourself just to CASE. And one way to also think about, if you find out about a funding opportunity, I guess like a month before the deadline, well, it's going to be a pretty rushed application as well. So when you see opportunities that maybe you're not eligible for now, but eligible for in the future, like put that in your calendar and set a reminder, even if it's like 3 years from now, just do that. Or have a document, like I have an Excel file where I kind of have, this is me as a professor, where I have things planned out by year, where I'm like, this is the year that I'd be eligible for this opportunity. I highlight it and make sure that I check that document periodically. So as a PhD student, you might do that, like, oh, this is for a finish line type funding for me to finish writing my thesis. So I'm going to set this, I'll a reminder in my calendar for like the year that I'm hoping to defend, or a year beforehand, and set reminders for that. Or this is a postdoctoral fellowship. I still have to defend my thesis, but I'm going to set a reminder like that same, like your last year in graduate school as well. So then you can think about applying that beforehand. So if you're not eligible now, still keep track of those opportunities. I'd also like to note that people that are just ahead of you in your career stage are a great resource as well to find opportunities. So, I mean, when you're reading papers, or I mean, when you're on research group websites and you see that, oh, this postdoc has this type of fellowship, this case alumni I connected with on LinkedIn had this type of fellowship, like you can see like what could be possible opportunities in the next steps of your careers as well. So that's another way that I find funding opportunities as well. And then also, especially if you see people that might be in your field with those fellowships, those are people you could possibly reach out to and network with and be like, oh, I saw you had this opportunity. Can I get advice? And most people are willing to be helpful, support the generation, I guess, below them, even if it's a couple of years, in regards to preparing those applications. So, I mean, I've taken that approach. People have contacted me where I'll just be like, oh, here's my application. Like, you can take a look at the format, just don't share it with anyone. And people are usually willing to do that, even if they don't have time to meet and talk to you as well. I want to note for some specific opportunities in the sciences, I'm going to drop a link in the chat. That the link that I just dropped in the chat is we have a committee in the physics department that collects opportunities for graduate fellowship committee. So this is just a list that we've put together that's relevant to, I'd say, the physical sciences. And I want to highlight a few of those opportunities, one being the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship Program. So I don't know what year people are in right now. So this is an opportunity if you're a first or second year PhD student that you could apply to. The deadline's coming up in October. So if there's some first year students, maybe something to consider next year. Another one is the Department of Defense Fellowship Program, the NDSEG. That's the second one in that link. I think very similar to the NSF program as well. So first or second year graduate students. So those are, like, I'd say, two of the bigger fellowship opportunities in the natural sciences. But there's also many other listed there. And then also I'd say I do biophysics research. So the National Institutes of Health, I think it's the F31, is also an opportunity for PhD students to apply to. So I'd say, like, those are three big areas. And the NSF one is just large because it can apply to many different areas of the sciences. And then also one other one that I like to post is that was just started last year. I'm putting in the chat the Quad Fellowship by the Schmidt Futures. That has a deadline in June, and many times we get questions from students that may not have permanent residency or U.S. citizenship, like what opportunities are available to them. So the Quad Fellowships, I think, is specifically with citizens from Japan, India, and Australia doing research in the United States that would fund 1 year of their research or so. So last year, that Quad Fellowship is one that, okay, I learned about, I guess, like a month before the deadline or so, since a former alum was applying to that. And since that was a new program, that was an example of, like, if you're not always looking for opportunities, you can miss those opportunities. So the people that were aware of this fellowship last year in the first year, they probably had less people that they were competing with. So I give that as an example of, like, if you're always looking or staying on top of those things, then you can take advantage of those situations as well. Something, I guess, some other advice I would say, maybe it's a little bit off topic with, like, just finding fellowships, but always take a look at the details in like the funding opportunity announcement. How your application is going to be reviewed is detailed in there. They're going to give the reviewers exactly that FOA and say like, comment on these things. And then when the review panel meets, they're going to be asking questions. The program officer is going to be like, well, what about these things that we have written out? So you really want to keep that announcement in mind when you're doing that. You also want to give yourself adequate time to prepare your application. So if you're always looking, you know, those in my schedule to work on it during those months. I would say that's like a rough time, at least for me personally, but even before those 3 months where you're going to be working on it, you'll be thinking about that. And you should be thinking about always preparing for those type of applications. So like, you know, that the bar is going to be okay. Sharing your research, communicating your research. So if the opportunity for presenting at a conference comes up or a poster session on campus, like you'll be like, oh, I should sign up for that. So then I'll have that as a concrete example that I can put in my application. So you're always preparing for those opportunities. And then also I'd say, don't be afraid of applying to opportunities. Rejection, unfortunately, is part of academia. So you see people with like a bunch of successes and like the daily saying like, look how great everyone is. And you maybe have some imposter syndrome saying like, oh, like, I'm probably not going to get those things. Well, what you don't see in the daily is like all of the rejections that those people had on their path to that success. So being able to write fellowships and successfully get them takes a lot of practice, and it's going to, how you write those is going to change over time as you keep doing it over and over again. So the biggest advice I would say is like, just apply and just try. The worst thing they're going to do is say no, and then you have a document that you can pull from for the next application you submit. So those are most of the points I wanted to cover. That link that I shared has resources. And then I know Amy had the great listing in Pivot, and I just want to share, hopefully you don't get offended. This is from Johns Hopkins, that they have some Excel sheets that they have organized based on different levels of career. And I even use this sometimes to find things for early career opportunities for PIs. So that's just where I'm saying use all of the databases that you can find and work from. So that's another link that I just wanted to share. So thanks.
All right, thank you very much. And just for everyone watching the recording and for everyone here, I am saving the documents and links that Dr. Kisley has shared with us, so they will be accessible afterwards. Now we'll turn it over to Dr. Calandruccio.
All right, so let me get in present mode. Can everyone see my slides and hear me? Okay, excellent. Okay, so I wanted to just thank all of the graduate students who are here or who are watching the recording for coming and for participating. We're really excited to launch this initiative. We've said several times that this is a pilot. So we're learning as we go, and we welcome feedback throughout the process, because our goal is to really do this the best that we can to enhance your graduate student experience. And I also just wanted to take a few seconds to thank Ray and Cameron, your GCAS co-presidents, for being so giving of themselves and their time, because they care not only about their experience here at CWRU, but all of your experiences at CWRU. And they give a lot of their personal time to try to enhance not only their experience, but your experience. So thank you, Ray and Cameron, for all that you do for all of our graduate students in the college. So, you know, sometimes when we start to think about grant funding and money and competition, it starts to get a little scary. I loved that Dr. Kisley said about what you don't see in the daily. You know, it's like Facebook. No one sees the ugly, sweaty pictures. They only see the filtered, pretty ones, right? For example, I think out of the last 10 NIH grants we've submitted, 8 were not funded. It's not an easy road, but you can guarantee your grant will never be funded if you don't submit it. So I always like to use the New York Lotto saying, I'm a New Yorker. You might hear it with some of my vocabulary. You got to be in it to win it, baby. And that is really true. If you don't apply, you definitely will never receive. It's kind of the same thing when you think about going into your first jobs after graduate school. If you don't negotiate for yourself, if you don't ask, you will also not receive. So, you know, be an advocate for yourself. And one way to be an advocate for yourself is to say, I need money to do this work. And so this is really like the importance of money, right? It provides financial support to do the work you want to do. That's really why all of us are here. We like being creative. We like learning and studying things. And if we can't do the work we actually want to do, why are we doing this, right? So let that money work for you. And a big thing that money does for us is not only funds the work that we want to do, but it provides the time that we need to concentrate on that work. So for example, I'm a professor in psychological sciences. My teaching load is 2 and 2 each semester. I actually love to teach and I love to be in the classroom, but teaching that much really doesn't give you a lot of time to do research in the lab. And so one of the things that my grants allows me to do is to reduce the amount that I teach. And so it just gives me more time to concentrate on the work that I want to be doing in the lab. Another great thing about grants is that it's writing them and getting them funded is really evidence that you can tell a compelling story on the importance and the value of the work that you do. Because I know in our own head, like we are convinced what we are doing is important, right? But if we can't relay that to somebody else, that's a problem because we want our work to translate to other people. I think most of us in this room would agree we're not just doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for society or others, right? So it's really evidence that you can relay this information. And it helps to prove that you have a track record of follow through, right? Because if we think what a grant proposal is, it's like, I got this idea, I see a deadline, I hit the deadline, I do what I say I'm going to do, and I finish the project, right? And so what's that basically showing is that you can follow through. And so this is important for any job that you have a desire to be in. I don't assume that everyone in this space wants to be an academic, nor should everybody be an academic, but for every job, your success will be greater if you can follow through on your task. So when we use the terms external and internal funding, remember all we mean when we say internal is that the money is available at your home institution. And one of the nice reasons it's good to get your feet wet with internal funding opportunities because they're typically less competitive than external awards. Remember, we have to think about the pool of people we're competing against, right? That's why federal grants are so competitive because we are not only competing with other people in this country, but even people beyond that scope. And so the pool of competition just becomes very fierce, right? If we restrict ourselves to competing to only people at CASE, not that we don't have great people here, but the pool is going to be smaller of who you're competing against, right? It increases your odds. Often the applications and the reporting processes are streamlined compared to external competitions. And so it makes the overall process a little quicker, a little bit simpler, and it's just good practice. Anytime you write a grant, it's practice pitching your story. And we get better at telling our stories every time we tell them. I've been a faculty member for over 15 years, and every year I think I get better at grant writing, I get better at manuscript writing, I get better at conveying my story, right? So if this was easy to do and we could all do it perfectly from day one, it would be boring. So like, that's part of it. It's this growth and the experience. And I'd like to also emphasize that it's evidence that you're a good steward of money. So if someone gives you money, right, someone worked hard to get that money there, either through fundraising, donations, taxpayer dollars, right? I mean, it isn't money to be wasted. And I always take a lot of pride to say, someone entrusted me with these dollars that were not plentiful, they were limited, and I need to respect them. I need to use them frugally and smartly and most effectively. And I need to be a good steward of this money. And I'm going to show that I will follow through with the work that I was funded to do. I just encourage you to think about that when you think about competing for any type of funding. So this was very similar to what Dr. Kisley was talking about. I encourage you, get familiar with all possible funding mechanisms. So some of you might have looked at Amy's presentation and said, I don't want 44 things to come up in Pivot, but I'm going to argue to you, the more opportunities you know about, you might be able to fit your way into them. And if you're kind of an oddball applying for that mechanism, you're going to stand out. And so that actually might make you more competitive for certain mechanisms. And like both of the previous presenters said, sometimes these funding deadlines are weird, right? It might be only once a year in March or twice a year, and the money doesn't actually get delivered till 9 months later. And so you really have to like study these funding mechanisms, know the deadlines, know allowable costs, know your budget limits, and prepare ahead. So Dr. Kisley was mentioning, like, she has kind of a roadmap for years to see where the best funding mechanisms are. And that's a really great strategy because these processes are sometimes painfully slow. The last NIH application I submitted was in April. It's being reviewed November 4th, the grant. The council doesn't meet till January to tell if the grant gets funded or not. So that's almost an entire year. It's a few months short of a year from when I submitted the grant to when you would be notified if it was paid or not. And that does not include the several months that I worked on writing the proposal. So planning is really important, but I'm not saying that to freak you out. I'm saying invest in the time and do it once, and every other time becomes easier and easier because you will be able to reuse and repurpose different pieces of the proposal. For example, you will all see that part of the grant that we hope you will apply for includes a biographical sketch. That is something that if you apply for another grant, you will use pieces of that. It might not be identical, but it will be very similar. Oops, I went the wrong way. Okay, so there are many opportunities within CRU to find money at home. So if anyone is feeling trepidation, a little bit nervous to go for the external awards right away, this is a perfect place to start. And some of these are for a decent amount of money. I know like the Social Justice Institute's graduate student fellowship grant is for $3,500. So this isn't like a piddly amount of money. It could be a significant amount of money to really enhance your graduate school training. And Ray and Cameron will make sure that our list of internal funding is on the GCAS website for everybody. And another place to always check is within your department. Sometimes there is money available and people actually don't even know. And so I would encourage you, don't just ask one faculty member, but ask multiple, because sometimes not all the faculty members know. And so really use that network of people to find those opportunities. And of course, now we also want to introduce our GCAS GSSCE award. So part of this professional development writing group learning community that myself, Ray, Cameron have been working on with a lot of feedback from many contributors across the college. And so we're very thankful to everyone who's given us great feedback and helped us really flesh out our ideas. Includes a seminar series. This is the first of 3. We will have 2 more seminars that we hope you join us for about how to actually do the writing, and then an explanation of how grants are really reviewed. And so ways that you can be involved as a graduate student in the College of Arts and Sciences is to attend these seminars or watch the recordings, review the slides. You can sign up to be a part of our review panel for this award mechanism, and hopefully also think about submitting a proposal for one of 5 of these awards. So you do have to be a student in the College of Arts and Sciences at CWRU and a full-time student. And your proposal must be for either research, scholarship, or creative work pertaining to either your graduate planned program of study or your future professional goals. The grant awards are due on October 28th at midnight. There will not be exceptions made to that deadline, and those grants will be submitted via campus groups. Feel free to also submit early and not at 11:59. We would appreciate that. And you would be competing for one of 5 awards up to $1,000. Within the award mechanism, you will provide the review panel with a biographical sketch. This will allow the review panel to learn about you and to learn what skills you bring to the table to accomplish this work. You'll provide a brief abstract. This was something I really this is like my Achilles heel, that sometimes I was in a very bad habit of leaving that to last. And you forget that sometimes this is the only thing people read. And if you miss them at the hook, you lose them. And so I've really tried to change my strategy of writing my abstract first, and then writing my proposal and going back and editing my abstract, so it's not an afterthought. So remember, even though the abstract is short and might be the thing to save for last, don't forget that it's important. And then you'll be working on your research or creative activity plan, which is limited to 3 pages. The review panel will have, like Dr. Kisley mentioned, a certain list of criteria that they have to pay attention to when they're scoring your grant. You have that list in this funding announcement. So as you're proofreading your proposal, you need to say, is it easy for the reviewer to find these pieces of my proposal? Will it be clear the importance or significance of my work, right? You don't want the reviewer to have to chase that information. So make sure as you begin to write, you're really thinking about that review criteria. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got a limit to 3 pages, and this includes your specific aims of your work, the significance of your work, and your design, methods, procedures, evaluation. I'm using some flowy words here because we have a very wide range of disciplines within our college. So don't, be worried if one of these words doesn't really make sense for an art history or a math proposal, for example. You do you, and you talk to your mentors and get feedback, and just make sure you fit within the criteria that we set on the FOA. And if you ever have any questions, let us know and give us feedback, because maybe by next year we need to change our wording just slightly. You will also provide us with a management plan and budget. This will allow you to outline your activities with timelines and a justification for your budget items. If you're in some of the sciences, social sciences, you may have human subjects in your work, and we will need to know that you have IRB approval or are in the works for that. So for some people who that's applicable for, you will have to submit that information, as well as a citation list and a letter of support from your either academic advisor or your primary mentor for this project. If some of you are thinking, I don't have a mentor for this project, you need a mentor, because remember, no man is an island, and anything we can do better once we get feedback from other people. Okay, so really engage in taking advantage of great mentors on campus. As part of this mechanism, there is a required final report, and this is very common for all external awards. So often when you receive money, either from a foundation or from a small grant, a federal grant, you have to tell them what you did with their money. They don't just give you your money and then it's good. They want to know, how was this money spent and was it effective? And so we've tried to make this as easy as possible for you because we know you're busy graduate students, but we do want you to get into the habit of having to report what you did with the money. And with that, our final reports will be due either December 31st, 2023, or when you graduate, whichever happens first. And those will be restricted to a 1-page limit, so it shouldn't be a daunting process, and hopefully is like an uplifting process to let you reflect on what you have accomplished through this award. I do want to highlight that the funds have to be spent this fiscal year, which means they need to be submitted for before the close of the fiscal year, which is June 30th, 2022. So as we look forward, I want you to consider joining us for our next 2 seminars. We have several staff and many faculty participating in these seminars. They are volunteering their time to help me and Ray and Cameron run these seminars, and we're very appreciative of their time. So the more students that take advantage of this information, the better it is for everyone. If you have any questions at any point, don't hesitate to contact either me or Ray or Cameron. All of our emails are up here. And of course, we're very easily Googleable in the case engines. And of course, you could find us on the GCAS campus page as well. And if you're interviewing or if you're interested in reviewing proposals, please reach out to Ray and Cameron so they could get your name added to the list. We will be looking for review panels that will be discipline specific for the grants that get submitted. And so we will try to include everybody that's interested, but there's going to be a little bit of nuance to that. But if you tell us you're interested, we will be in communication with you. So with that, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know everybody is so busy and still super tired coming out of the pandemic. And so we just really appreciate you joining us and engaging and remembering that we all have to work together to make this a really great experience for you during your graduate studies at CRU. And that's what we're here for. We really want this to be awesome, not just for you, but for the people that you're going to impact as you leave this community. So thank you to GCAS and to the Office of the Dean for providing us with the support to do this. And please tell your friends and share it around. And we welcome questions.
Thank you. Before we open it to questions, I just want to reiterate what Lauren said there at the end. If you have any questions about the GCAS GSSCE grant, please feel free to email Lauren, Cameron, or I. And if you'd like to be in contact with us, because you're interested to be on the panel to review those submitted grants, make sure you email Cameron or I. We'd love your name, your email, what department you're in, what degree you're pursuing, like a master's or a PhD, what year you are in your program, and then whether or not you're a full or part-time student. We'd be interested to know that as well. With that out of the way, are there any questions for any of our 3 speakers? You type in the chat or unmute yourself.
Ray, do you mind if I very quickly add also in the chat box to follow through with what Dr. Kisley mentioned about, looking everywhere for opportunities, even if it's at other institutions, like list of opportunities, like Dr. Kisley showed from Johns Hopkins. If you're in the arts and humanities, College of William & Mary has an outstanding list of humanities funding, which I will include here in the chat box. So.
All right, I have a question. for those of us who are ending our time here at CASE and beginning to apply for jobs or fellowships or what else afterwards, can any of you speak to how important it is to show that you have gotten grants on those job applications? I mean, is that something that job review people really like seeing?
I will speak first to that just very quickly. That is, I can speak from my own graduate experience that I got involved in grants through my graduate program, and it was extremely rewarding. It taught me, like, because it's a very specific type of writing, and I gained that skill while in the graduate program, and it looked outstanding on my CV when I was looking for jobs. And my graduate mentor actually told me that if you know anything about grants or how to write it, you will never be without a job. So
I could just add to that it's obviously important in the academy. In R1 institutions, it's extremely important because they want to see that you'll have a trajectory to make tenure at their institution. New faculty hires are a huge investment for the university. Most places do not hire people to then get rid of them. They want them to be successful there. But even if you're interested in more of a teaching institution, they're also a great way to show that when you get an idea, you're resourceful to look for the funding that's required to implement the idea, right? All of us know that money isn't just flowing around us everywhere we look. And so they know that the people who seek those opportunities are often going to be more self-motivated and self-driven. And those are the types of people who often make the best employees. So I think it's going to benefit you in every experience. And I have a lot of friends that do not work in the academy and do more grant writing than I do. Now, they're lucky that they don't usually have to do NIH grant writing, but they still have to do grant writing. So I think all of us here would argue that this is just part of professional development. And that's why we named this learning group with those words, professional development. This isn't just about securing grants. It's about growing yourself as a professional.
And I'll also add to that. So with different career opportunities, Lauren made it clear about R1 institutions, even at teaching institutions. I have friends who are pre-tenure at Oberlin and Hope College, and like their bars for tenuring also include at least applying to one grant, and they're trying to also have funding to get the cool instruments they want and stuff like that in the physical sciences. If you go the government route and you're at a DOE lab or something similar, they compete for the same type of funding mechanisms that we do at our R1 institutions. They also have a lot of internal funding where they're writing. If you go nonprofit sector, like funding is a big aspect there. You might be applying to different opportunities. And then if you go the industry route, maybe there's funding, but like communication is a key aspect. So you can spin your experience writing these proposals or landing a fellowship during your time in academia and say, like, I have a lot of experience with written communication and doing it successfully. So I think you can spin it that way when you're looking for a job.
Okay, thank you. There's an excellent question in the chat from Rima, probably for mostly Amy. The question is there a way on Pivot to filter grants for international students, or an easy way to look for that, since we have to go into details of each grant to figure out if we are eligible, which is often in fine print, so it wastes a lot of time. Is there a database being built somewhere?
yes, you can definitely search. It's on that left-hand side of all the different ways to filter the results that you've searched. Say if you put in a keyword and that like over 500 opportunities showed up, you can then filter it, and there is one that's the type of either funder or institution that is eligible for applying. It lists like United States and international And also it will break it down too. If it's a very specific country too that you're hoping to get funding through, you can filter that. It does have that option.
Thank you. Any other questions? We got about 5 minutes left here.
While some people might be thinking of another question, I'll just make one more plug about the importance of networking. So Dr. Kisley mentioned that like a really great way to find out about opportunities is through other people, right? I mean, yes, you're always going to find the people in academia who are really like focused on themselves, but I would actually argue in my time in the academy, the majority of people really want to help other people. And so if you seek advice and you seek input, even from your peers, it often gives you a lot more information, right? So really take advantage of those networks. For example, if you're very close with your mentor, but you don't know your chair, get to know your chair, right? If you only really know your mentor, get to know another faculty member in the department or a different department, right? Because they're going to have a very different experience and they'll be able to help guide you and give you advice in maybe different areas. And I encourage all of you, if you do not have a LinkedIn profile, do that. The Career Center is great helping people create good LinkedIn profiles. And it is a fantastic way to build your network and see those opportunities that might not come up in Pivot or might be brand new opportunities, which are always the best to compete for because fewer people are aware of them.
There's another question in the chat from Jenna. Is it possible to apply to the GSSCE grant jointly with another student?
Wow, so interesting. We haven't thought of that. Can I give a confident answer, Ray?
Sure.
I'm going to confidently say yes. If it makes sense that you do a proposal together that you could co-apply, assuming that your award amount would not exceed $1,000 because you'd be competing for the one award. We wouldn't allow students to double dip, write the same proposal and both apply for $1,000 because I don't think that would be quite fair. That's my off the cuff quick answer that I hope Ray and Cameron agree with.
That's good to me.
Okay.
I mean, and that's pointing out the reality of grant writing is that there's always an email in the FOA. And if you can't find the answer in the FOA, like don't be afraid to email and ask because they don't cover everything. And that's the whole point of them including those emails. It's better to do that than guess and then like find out that you guessed wrong and then you wasted a bunch of time. So.
That brings me to one other point. When Ray was asking everybody if you were interested in the review panel and he kind of went through the things he wanted to know, notice he didn't like ask for your dissertation topic. So that's the other thing to think about, that people reviewing your grants are often not directly in what you're doing, right? So I study hearing science and I study one little sliver of hearing science, speech perception. That doesn't mean that if I submit a grant that all of the 3 reviewers assigned to my grant also study speech perception. They likely study hearing science, but it could be very, very broad. Okay, so when you're writing a grant, you have to think about that. You want to get everybody on board and not just the people who totally get your work already, right? That's like you get to preach to the choir. That's not what you get to do typically in a review panel.
Yeah, and I think that's a mistake people make early on. They're like nervous that like, oh, I have to make sure like I sound smart, I cover all my bases. So then it gets like very jargony and like you're really focused on having all the citations when really people just want to be excited about the research. And also they want it to be very easy. Like when I was reviewing for like the GRFP, like we had 20 applications to read around Christmas time, like the winter break season. And it's like, you want it to be easy to go through instead of trying to be like, okay, I have to look at all this background and stuff. So that's something to consider.
All right, well, we are coming up on time. So first of all, Rima, it looks like you have a more technical question for Amy, so I will suggest emailing her directly. I will real quickly put in the event link for the next session in this run, which is how to write a funded grant or fellowship application. That's actually how you go through the writing process of crafting a grant. And that will be this upcoming Monday, September 26th at 10 a.m. So make sure you're RSVP'd on campus group to get the Zoom link, and hopefully we will see you there. Otherwise, as always, email Cameron, Lauren, or I if you have questions about the GCAS grant. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Thank you, Amy and Lydia.